Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Harkleroad-Adams 2020 NFL Playoffs Preview Show. My name is Drew here. We have our analysts Matt Harkleroad and Chris Adams. Say hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
And so the 2019 NFL regular season is complete in the books, and we're getting ready. We're a couple hours away from the first game, which is going to be Texans-Bills at 4:30. So before those games started, we wanted to get a chance to get some more content out to you guys. Thank you for all the new subscribers and followers, and if you aren't following us as of yet, hit that subscribe button, and let's get into talking about the regular season before we dive into the playoffs. Let's do a little bit of a post-mortem. It's been a couple weeks since we got a chance to get together for the regular season talk. Any final thoughts before we put the regular season to bed?
Yeah, I mean, this was an interesting football season in general. I mean, sure, it was a little chalky, I think, to start off. I mean, we've pretty much known the teams that are going to be in the playoffs for the last 4 weeks. I don't think there was any big surprises besides maybe
the order.
Well, in the Pittsburgh Titans, Texans, which one of those we're going to get in. But
not a ton of drama the last couple weeks.
Yeah, it's been a little calm on that front. I think the biggest thing seems to be trends towards a running style offense. I mean, you look at the most successful teams right now, they've all had a pretty prevalent run game that's been, whether it be Lamar Jackson as the main running back in Baltimore, or if it's the fullback combination that you got in San Francisco, or if you got the NFL rushing leader Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, and from the Titans. So if you look at those guys, and across the board, there's a lot of good run game, and your guys with the big QBR numbers and passing them. Your passing leader is Jameis Winston. He's not in the playoffs. It's not surprising, but
a 30-30 season for Jameis is just incredible, insane. And is the summation of Jameis Winston.
Right, exactly. I mean, threw for 5,000 plus yards. It's kind of interesting how that all shakes out, and I think if you look at some other overall trends, I mean, reffing has been as bad as ever. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think it was a fun season. I mean, some surprises early on about who was going to be good and bad, but otherwise,
the surprises were different maybe than what we're used to in terms of surprises, because it wasn't as extreme. So you had some teams that people like Baltimore, right? Nobody expected them to go 14-2, but nobody expected them to go 2-14 either, right? This wasn't a team that went from worst to first. This was a team that won the division last year. Most people had as a playoff team, the somewhere between 9-7 and maybe 11-5, depending on how
thought
things
that they would
broke.
be playing this week.
Yeah,
they would be in like the Texans,
right?
Where they
Exactly.
Won the
but then they played an amazingly high level, better than anybody thought they would.
Yeah.
San Francisco, I mean, they had the number 2 pick in last year's draft. Their quarterback was injured. Nobody was really sure about them. But again, most people thought they would probably be in that 7-9 to 10-6 range, and again they get the top seed in the NFC.
Right.
You had teams like New England is playing in the first week for the first time in years. That's a surprise, especially how they started this year too. Although their schedule was very favorable at the beginning of the season. You had teams like the Rams. Kind of lived up to. They didn't make the playoffs. They didn't meet expectations, but they weren't horrible.
Right. Yeah, and a tough division too. So I mean, especially with the rise of the San Francisco 49ers.
Yep.
So you had like certainly the Browns were a big disappointment, and some other teams, Dallas.
Sure. We're going to talk about both those teams when it comes to the coaching carousel.
But overall, right, you had some teams that people thought were going to be great were just good, and some teams that people thought were going to be good ended up being great.
Yeah.
So.
And the Packers took a huge leap, with a new coach and the same old quarterback who, again, it's kind of strange that they end up with the bye week and not on the back of an Aaron Rodgers elite season.
Yeah, it was on the back of an Aaron. It was more Aaron Jones than it was Aaron
Rodgers. But Aaron, again, I've been saying this in the last couple of videos. Aaron Rodgers had a really nice year.
He did, but
under the radar.
Yeah, I mean, but again, if you're going to say that the Packers got into the playoffs this year, what would you say the number one cause was going to be? Yeah, at the beginning of the season, you'd say Aaron Rodgers just played out of his mind. Yes, he didn't turn the ball over much, but not statistically, not just numbers for passing, but I'm just saying quarterback rating, like things that actually tell you how good your quarterback play is. Not an elite season for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I think adding that little bit of balance, so it wasn't just like Aaron Rodgers and 4 or 5 guys on the wide receivers.
Right.
they were able to get Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams involved. And,
and then defense was a huge leap, especially
absolutely.
how bad they were last year. So it's just kind of an interesting. If you just look at them as just a one team to look at, that's an interesting revelation for them. I mean, Aaron Rodgers still one of the best quarterbacks in the world, but again, they didn't ride him into this playoffs.
Right. Any kind of final thoughts before we shift gears and really kind of put this away? I think we kind of pretty much.
That was a fun season. I mean, I enjoyed it week to week. I wish my Browns would play a little better, but otherwise, it was
high quality football beginning to end this year.
All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to just do an overarching playoff preview. They're going to give their predictions. We'll talk about past Super Bowl picks and then what the future is going to look like in the next couple of weeks. And then we're going to dive into the wild card games. What we're aiming to do is try to get you some more content, get another video out early next week, kind of recapping the wild card games and then talking about the next round. So we're not going to do game by game and going into conference championships and then the Super Bowl beyond that. So let's go ahead and get started. What do you guys think about how does the playoff picture look to you?
Well, maybe we should make fun of me a little bit about my.
I'm always on board.
Playoff picks
and
your picks at this point. I mean, both my picks are out. I don't even want to say what they are: Bears and Chargers.
Can we just sit for a minute and maybe just think that these were arguably the worst Super Bowl picks in the history of?
They were real bad.
I'm not
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They were bad picks. I mean, fortunately, the Bears kind of turned it on towards the end of the season. If they had played like that in the first half, maybe they're sitting at the 6th seed.
Right.
In the NFC. But I'll take all of the haranguing I deserve.
Both your picks are still in, Saints and Patriots. Are you still feeling good about that?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that this is not an elite level Patriots team compared to their previous versions of them. But you can't count the Patriots out in the playoffs.
Right.
You look at the quarterback and the coach.
Even if they have to play this.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And the Saints had a really, really nice year, especially that they did a good chunk of it without Drew Brees. But they're a different team on the road, and they did not get a bye. They did not get home advantage other than this week. So if they win this week, they're going to Lambeau Field in January, and that could be a huge negative in the Saints' quest to win the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, maybe on the Saints, just maybe that Ingram loss rings a little heavier than we thought maybe it would with Kamara being there. I mean, losing that extra, more bruising style running back, maybe that had a little more.
Maybe, although again, they had a really great year, and in most years they're the number 2 seed, if not the number 1 seed. Right. This just was a really, really top heavy year in the NFC.
Yeah, and Latavius has been fine. I think the fact that what's been good for the Saints is because how Kamara has really come on in the last 2, 3, 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I think he's clicking at the right time. When he came back, he was still kind of struggling. He was he was still getting those 100 total yard types of games, but wasn't scoring touchdowns. It looked as dynamic as we expect Alvin Kamara to do. And if he's back to where he was, even 90% of that, that's still a really, really good football player.
Well, and I was thinking more if they have to go into Lambeau, which guy wouldn't you like to have Mark Ingram there?
Yeah, that's true.
On the ground in a game where you're going to have to be grinding on the ground, especially if it's snowy and cold. Yeah. I mean, obviously we won't know what the weather is.
Is grinding in the Saints' DNA? I don't know.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah.
But you'd feel a lot better if you had Ingram back there. If you had to grind up.
So do you want to make a new, fresh Super Bowl prediction?
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Okay, go for it.
At least I have something to talk about. To me, I mean, at this point, it's hard to discount what the Ravens are doing. They are beating good teams. They're playing week to week great football. They're embarrassing teams occasionally. They are playing top-notch football. And if you look at the AFC, in my opinion, they seem to be the clear favorites going into it on the AFC. Now, you can make an argument that, KC struggled at the beginning of the season with Mahomes being injured, and they've kind of picked it up, made some good wins towards the back half of the season. But I think there's more question marks on that team, especially without a great run attack. But I mean, at this point, they look like the Ravens look like the class of the AFC. So I guess I'll take the Ravens. I think that they could win this whole thing. The NFC is a lot trickier.
Absolutely.
Honestly, I think it could be any of the 3 seeds in the top. and so I guess if I'm making a prediction at this point, God, I think I just want to see a San Francisco Ravens Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go with that, and I'll take the Ravens to win it.
But how about you, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, again, I got my Saints over Patriots pick, which I'm still gonna stick with.
Okay.
But I'm maybe gonna highlight two other teams that I think could make a run.
Sure.
And there's two teams that I think are really in an advantageous position. Mm-hmm. One is the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
And they're in the position of having nobody talking about them. Mm-hmm. All the talk in the AFC is the Ravens, deservedly so for their season, mm-hmm. but then also the Patriots because of who they are and their history and their DNA, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Nobody's talking about the Chiefs. Mm-hmm. They got that number 2 seed. They have another week to rest Mahomes. Mm-hmm. They've kind of been clicking of late. They have potentially a favorable route through the playoffs. They would get potentially New England at home in the second round.
And we know how the Chiefs are with Andy Reid after bye weeks.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, and I do think they have an offense. They're one of the two teams that beat the Ravens during the year. The other was the Browns, which is kind of hilarious. But yeah, they have an offense that can go toe to toe with them. They have pieces in place to beat them. I think they still have a chip on their shoulder about how last year ended.
Sure.
The other in the NFC, kind of same thing as we talked a little about before, is the Packers. Right? All the talk is about the Niners, the Saints, and then actually probably the Seahawks, even though they have a lower seed, but being in that good division. They're the teams that are getting all the pub. They've got they've had the great regular seasons. The Packers have just been kind of humming along, which is really weird to talk about an Aaron Rodgers team flying under the radar, but they are.
And with a bye week.
Right, with a bye week. Yeah. With a bye week. Mm-hmm. Also, they have the potential. I was looking at it the other day. I mean, if things go the way everyone, if chalk holds this week, you will have New Orleans coming to Lambeau Field in January. Huge advantage to the Packers. Then you would have Seattle play in San Francisco. Very likely that Seattle wins that game. I would take Russell Wilson over Jimmy Garoppolo, and that's not really that far of an away game.
I mean, we saw last week.
Yeah,
how close Seattle came to winning that game. They minus a few,
and if
time management issues at the end.
Seattle wins that game, which I think is likely, then all of a sudden Green Bay has home advantage, and Seattle has to come to Lambeau in later January. So the path is there for the Pack.
Yeah, I think for the Packers, what do you need to do in the playoffs to win? Run the football, don't turn the football over. Those are two huge things, and that's what they're really, really good at.
And they also have Aaron Rodgers, who can dial it up.
Have a quarterback. That is right.
So.
Well, let's go ahead and let's dive on into these wild card games. Like I said, we're just going to talk about the wild card games ahead of the games this upcoming weekend. We'll get into further matchups next week.
So, Drew, I actually have one kind of general thought about the wild card weekend this year. It's a very different dynamic than last year.
Okay.
A year ago, we're watching this. The wild card weekend, it's like, oh, this is cute, but these teams aren't going to be around. And sure enough, you had your top seeds last year. Came in, who was it? New England, Kansas City, the Rams, and the Saints came in week 2 and just blew everybody out. They're like, okay, amateur hour's over. Yeah. Here's the Super Bowl contenders. I think there's way more talent playing this weekend, this year, than in last year, and really in most years.
Yeah, I think a lot of question marks, too.
Yeah.
Even the elite teams seem like they've got question marks.
But you look at Seattle and New Orleans especially, most years, those teams had a season like that, they're on a bye this week. And here they are playing the first weekend.
Right.
And then you got the Patriots, right, who are playing in the first week.
You can pick 2 or 3 teams that could easily make it to a conference championship game, if not the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about some of those teams. Start with Texans and Bills. They're going to be the first game on Saturday today. So Texans, Bills, any kind of thoughts? How do you see how this game's playing out?
I think if you're looking at it as, which game do I want to watch the most, to me, this is the game right now.
Okay.
I just think this game could literally go any way, and I wouldn't be shocked about it tomorrow.
I don't have a good feeling about it.
I don't know I don't know which Bills team's going to show up. I don't know which Deshaun Watson's going to show up.
Right.
There are so many question marks. This game looks like it's going to. To me, this is going to be either the funnest game or it's going to be the worst one. It's it's either going to be a blowout, and it could be either way, or this is going to be a drag out fight.
Like a 13-10, really.
And I think that's what we're going to get. this is the hardest game of the bunch to pick for me.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I guess the Texans have home field, so I'm going to go with them.
Okay.
But at the same time, I wouldn't even be slightly shocked if the Bills go in there and destroy them.
Mm-hmm.
They have moments of where they look amazing, and then they've got moments where they look awful. So. It's a fun one.
Yeah, I agree with what Matt said. I mean, on some level, I think Buffalo is just happy to be here.
I agree with that.
But they're not a bad team. You know, Josh Allen has made some strides. I think McDermott's pushing the right buttons. Ultimately, if you're asking me to pick, I'll take Deshaun Watson over Josh Allen. But as I mentioned, I think in the last video, when Watson's bad, he's bad. And if that happens today, I would totally not surprised me to see Buffalo.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if Fuller actually plays because it's Deshaun Watson with Will Fuller and without is such a huge change. It's 180 almost.
Yeah, and the same thing. If they can keep Deshaun Watson off his back, he's significantly better. But again, do I think it's possible for the Bills to scheme a way to beat that offensive line? Sure, it's definitely possible to do. I mean, Tunsil's playing great, but otherwise. That offensive line has got some holes, and he's had plus 40 sacks again this year. I just think, I think this one's going to be great.
Honestly. Yeah, I wonder if the Bills just make this, they're going to hold on to the ball as long as they can. Like if they try to get the ball for 35, 36, 37 minutes and never give the Texans a chance to make, big plays.
It wouldn't shock me if Josh Allen walks out of this game with more rushing yards than he has throwing.
Mm-hmm.
It would not shock me that that's the game plan they go into this game with. Just try to grind you to death with read options and just trying to figure out how to get the ball on the ground and take the ball away from Deshaun Watson. I wouldn't shock me at all.
Yeah. All right, well, let's go ahead and switch gears. Let's talk about Titans and Patriots later tonight. Titans going to Foxborough. I mean, obviously, I think that New England has a history of scheming against Ryan Tannehill. How do you feel?
I mean, it's hard to pick against the Patriots in the playoffs, but I'm really interested in this game. I think the Titans have a lot of good things going for them. The way Tannehill's been playing, the way that Derrick Henry's been playing, and the fact that Vrabel is not afraid to just hand it off to Henry, 35 times a game, right? Because he's not doesn't get caught up in the ego of the pass happy offense, and it's just such a great story in Tennessee with what Tannehill's done in a limited sample size this year. And there's also the whole thing of the Belichick assistants having success against him, which they do. That's statistically shown. I really want to see Tennessee pull this off.
Yeah, I think everybody in the country does, unless you live. Unless you live in Boston.
Yeah, it's hard to pick against the Patriots.
It is, but I will say this. I mean, if you look at what this team can do with Tannehill I think they might be built almost to kind of mess this defense up a little bit because you're right, they can grind the ball, but also Tannehill's a threat to run too. He is not immobile. He runs when he needs to get first downs. They can take the top off with AJ Brown. I mean, Tannehill is playing out of his mind. Led the league this year in quarterback rating. So I mean, honestly, I think there's enough defense that they can. This Patriots offense doesn't look great. Again, the money says bet on the Patriots. That's where you're at. But again, I'm not surprised if this game goes the other way. And I think, honestly, if the Titans had made a change to Tannehill a little earlier in the season, maybe they're sitting there with a home game against Houston. I mean, they had their chance. They could have beat Houston. Week was that? Week 15 when they played and lost. But at the same time, I think this team might be better than their record says, and it'll be interesting. This game's fun too. I think the AFC. You throw it up in the air and see where it lands.
I feel like we say this every year, most years again with Patriots teams. I'm trying to balance what I think the Patriots are currently, and then when you watch a game like this and 5 minutes in it's 14-0 Patriots, and you're just like, well, why the heck did I even just take the Titans at all? I don't know which way that's going to go. If the Titans can hold the tide early and maybe make a play. I think Brown versus Gilmore is going to be really, really interesting because Gilmore got lit up by Devontae Parker last week, and that's kind of what A.J. Brown can do.
Similar, yeah.
So, I mean, if the Titans are able to, throw a first punch versus take a punch first, that could be a really interesting game.
And not having the extra week to game plan makes the Patriots not as solid of a team as they are when they get a bye week. So,
right.
And so, especially against a team like this, that is like, they were filming the Cincinnati Bengals because they didn't have a lot of information. How do you have any information on this team really? Like with what they're construed as right now, constructed as, like you don't know anything. Yeah. Like nobody knows anything about this Titans team.
Yeah, right. So it's some very toss-up games. You kind of lean towards like the home team, but if the road team goes in and win, it'd be a little bit surprising.
It should be a good football Saturday.
I think so too.
Yeah, so I'll take the Pats with that one if I didn't say.
All right, let's switch gears to talk NFC. I think these NFC games are really, really fascinating. Let's start with Saints and Vikings. I think the Saints on paper should be the better team, but I kind of think this has a sneaky shootout potential. How do you think this is going to go?
Yeah, to me, I think this is the easiest game for me to pick. And of all the games this weekend, I think this is the one where you look at it and you say, all right, what can you say positive about each team? And you look at Minnesota and you say, yeah, they've got weapons, their defense is okay at times, but I mean, I love Kirk, but guy hasn't won a game against a good team all season. Yeah. And on the road in New Orleans,
1 p.m. Sunday, that's when he shines.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's not a night game. It's good for him. It's not a night game. It's not Monday night. But I mean, literally, he's beat one team with a winning record all season, and that's the Eagles when they were at their worst. Yeah. Right. So, to me, you just look at him and you say, man, everything lines up for the Saints in this game. But again, if they have the players, they have the talent to do it, they just haven't done it. And until I see it, I'm going to take the Saints.
Fair enough. How about you, Chris?
Same thing. It's hard to go against the Saints here. I mean, I think the Saints are probably a little bit pissed off that they didn't get one of the top 2 seeds. This is their one home game in the playoffs. I think that the talent level is substantial difference between the two of them. I echo what Matt said about Cousins and an ability to beat winning teams. I think the Saints actually take care of business in this one. I don't think it's particularly close.
Yeah, I think this is the one, game that is, you look at on paper, and if I had a gun to my head pick it, it's the first one.
If I'm doing a confidence pool this week, that's the first one.
This is the one. I mean, again, but they do have weapons, and
Dalvin Cook might play, so
that'll
potentially,
help. That'll help.
Yeah, Cook and obviously getting Thielen back, and whatever he can actually offer at this point. I mean, I think that's just good when you have good players. You hopefully get better outcomes.
But then again, luck does seem to run against the Saints.
Yeah. In the playoffs.
But then it's against the Vikings, so I think it's canceled out. The Vikings with their playoff history. All right, let's shift gears to the Seahawks and the Eagles. Chris, do you have a good feel of this one?
I think the Seahawks take care of business.
You think so?
I know the Eagles have been playing better of late, but they've still had a really disappointing year. Like I said earlier, the Seahawks, most years, that's a division championship first round bye type season. I think they go in there. Also, I don't know what this means, but the Seahawks have a history. They were a 7-9 division champion and won a first round game. They pulled an upset. So I think they're going to be, as much as anybody can be on guard for something like that, I think they will be. I think they go into Philly and take care of business. I don't expect this one to be super close either.
Interesting. You feel that way? Do you have a different feeling?
I think this game could literally go either way. Wentz doesn't have a whole lot of playoff experience.
His wide receivers certainly don't either.
Yeah, and right.
Who
is wide receiver for them? I don't even know.
Chris is getting on the plane after this call. Do it.
Yeah, I mean, Wentz watched a lot of the best Philadelphia playoff games from a sideline. And Russell Wilson has been nothing if not phenomenal at times in the playoffs and through this whole season. You take a look at that and you say, all right, this should be a Seattle. Seattle's got to be favored in this game, right? Even if it's on the road.
I think they were plus
2, I think, probably.
That sounds right.
So, if you look at it, you say this is a Seattle game that they should win. But man, the Eagles have been playing so much better as of late. And maybe the NFC East is bad, and maybe they shouldn't have taken any teams from that if we had to draw from a hat of what the best teams in the NFL are. Right. Nobody from the NFC East makes it. But if I'm picking again, I'm taking Russell Wilson. I think, you just got to look at what he can do, what that offense can do. Chris Carson's been rolling. It's...
Well, he's out.
That's right.
They got Marshawn. But, Eagles...
Yeah, Eagles and you got Beast Mode. Healthy Beast Mode.
I'll be really interested because the Eagles have a really good run defense. Yeah. Their pass defense has improved, but will the Seahawks allow that to open up a passing game if for some reason Lynch can't get anything more than 2.5-3 yards a carry? They've been.
Good question.
The Seahawks just don't want to open it up for whatever reason. They don't want to let Wilson throw 55 times. Not that I don't think he needs to get to that high, but is he going to get closer to 40 than he is going to get to 30 passes?
Yeah, and what do the Eagles do well?
We're
right there. What do the Eagles do well?
They find ways.
Find ways to win.
I think that's about it. I mean, it's like I think
they find ways to beat the Cowboys and get into the playoffs.
They're a well-coached team.
I think that's, and I think they're not afraid to pull.
Carson Wentz has some talent.
Yeah. Yes, but no one to throw to.
Yeah,
I think they're really good. They're really well coached. I think that they take chances when they feel like they have the odds in their favor, or let's say that they have. And I think the fact that if Miles Sanders is actually healthy, that gives. I mean, he's just been really, really good for like the last month and a half. And if he's able to do anything against his defense to kind of open it up for Carson Wentz and his bouncers and bartenders, wide receivers to do anything, then I think I think this game's gonna be a lot closer than what it is.
Yeah, I think this one could be pretty close. Again, I think you have to take the Hawks in this one in the Battle of the Birds.
Yeah. All right, so like I said, we're just.
But now that we've picked and we're all on the exact same page, I'm gonna flip one just so make it interesting.
Go for it.
I'm gonna take the Titans over the Pats.
Okay,
that's my one.
Like
I'm switching it. That's the game. Either one I could pick either way. But I want that to happen.
You'll either be showered with praise or with booze on our next.
That's okay. I'm okay with you.
Yeah. I'm going to be rooting for the Titans.
Well, who isn't, right?
All right, let's shift gears. Let's talk about the coaching carousel.
Smaller carousel this year.
It has been. It's still carousel. It's not as many horses and little rides this time, but I think still some very interesting teams out there. So obviously the Browns are out there. The Panthers are still looking for a coach. Giants got rid of Shermer, as I think we kind of expected. And the Cowboys, I guess, are getting rid of Jason Garrett. I think we're going to say...
For purpose of this video, let's assume.
And Washington replaced him.
And Washington got Ron Rivera as of right now. So do you guys have any thoughts? Like, who do you want to see in Cleveland?
Oh, man, that's a tough call.
Besides competency.
Yeah, that would be great. Honestly, if I'm picking right now of the available options out there, I really want someone who's got experience, someone who, has the ability to kind of right the ship and not come in not knowing how to pilot a ship. I think there's just too much talent on this team. It's too dysfunctional to just bring in somebody who's going to get their first shot at it. Yeah. So, in my opinion, the best option out there available now, I wanted Rivera kind of, as a good option, but I think McCarthy's the guy you got to look at right now. And if he spent the time in the offseason that he's claiming he spent learning how to coach offenses again, hopefully, that getting fired was a kick in his butt to kind of put his nose back to the grind to a guy who maybe historically doesn't seem like he's all in at coaching sometimes. But if hopefully that kicked him in the pants enough to say, I want to put it back together again. So of the available options, I think that's the guy for me.
I guess you'll just take a Super Bowl winning championship, coach at this point. Okay. Chris, how about you?
I agree. I hope they hire Mike McCarthy. The experience, everything Matt said, I echo. I would also be okay with Josh McDaniels.
Okay.
He's been kind of linked to the Browns since like 2008. In some ways, he's kind of like the white whale for the Haslam's. And I know people are going to bring up, what happened in Denver. But I mean, you look at Josh McDaniels.
Heck, even what happened in Indianapolis.
Right. But you look at Josh McDaniels' career, and you've got a guy who was made a head coach very, very early, made some mistakes, not so much in terms of on the field, but in terms of just running the whole organization. gets fired, goes back and works for his mentor again, and then reemerges as a viable candidate.
Yeah.
Who does that sound like? That's not unlike the story of Belichick himself.
Yeah.
So and even didn't Belichick have a thing where like he got hired by like the Jets for like
2 days?
2 days.
Yeah, and I think that lawsuit is still going on.
Yeah, right. So it's kind of uncanny, the similarities there. So I think I prefer McCarthy, but I would also be fine with McDaniels.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of coordinators out there that are getting hot and getting lots of press.
Yeah, the enemy from the Chiefs. Another.
Yeah, I mean, and Dable's again another option that seems to be getting a lot of heat. Greg Roman.
Yeah.
And ultimately, any of those names sound okay to me. But this team was just such a train wreck that you really want somebody that knows how to head coach, I think.
Yeah. And also, I think this is the one thing that's different about this Browns coach search than others is they're ready to win. It was a horrible year, but the talent's there, right? You don't want someone who's going to come in and says, "Oh, I'm going to blow this thing up and start another rebuild plan." You want someone who can come in and say, "You know what? You've got Baker Mayfield, Nick Chubb, Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Myles Garrett, all this talent, and we're gonna, we want someone who realizes that coaching is the missing link. You can go out there and
plus at this point another top 10 pick to add some more talent, whether that's on the offensive line or that's another claim.
Yeah, it will be on the offensive line.
Do you guys have any thoughts about the other teams? Who ends up in Dallas?
Yeah, so Dallas is the most interesting, maybe one of the most interesting options out there because on the one hand, Jerry Jones loves making big splashes,
He does.
but he also doesn't want to give up control. So if you're talking about like an Urban Meyer or Josh McDaniels or some of these big names, all of them are gonna probably want to have a bigger say in the day-to-day operations of the team than Jerry's probably gonna want. I mean, you make a big splash, that big splash becomes the face of your franchise. Jerry Jones is the face of the franchise for the Cowboys, so it's tough. So I could see him hiring Urban Meyer. I could see him hiring Josh McDaniels. I could also see him hiring, a coordinator that he can just.
I think Bieniemy would be really good as the Cowboys coach. I mean, there's so many good offensive playmakers. You have the emergence of Gallup, you have Cooper, you have Dak, you got Zeke, and we've seen what Bieniemy offenses can look like. I think that like I said, that would allow Jones to stay in control and have a good coach with an offensive mind, which is what I think they need.
Yeah, I mean it could be a name that no one's even talking about, and it would be like, okay, that sounds right for
like if they promoted Kellen Lewis.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, like that's one there that it could be. Kellen Moore. Yeah. And I would be like, okay, he wanted to hire the youngest coach in the game, and and he thinks this guy's a genius. Yeah. Wouldn't shock me at all if that was the case. But you look at them, I don't know the Browns. You think that Washington would have been a hard seat to fill, but Rivera jumped at that time. The Browns seemed like a tough. Why would anyone want to work for the Haslams at this point? Nobody gets to stay for any length of time.
That's why you get the contract. You get 2 years. And you get paid for 5.
Yeah, that's true, I guess. But none of these guys. That's not the ego of being a head coach.
Right.
But and then you look at God, does anybody want to coach New York? You got the media to deal with. Yeah. You don't have what looks to be, besides Saquon Barkley and maybe Daniel Jones.
You have to really be in love with Jones.
What are you getting out of that?
That's probably the worst roster available. Like if you're, there's a lot of different things that factor into coach. Like the Browns job, great roster, crappy ownership situation. Dallas, great roster, questionable ownership situation. The Giants, you have stable ownership with the Mara family, but then you have a crappy roster.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't like the Carolina roster either, especially if you don't. I think that's the.
But also stable ownership, but a bad roster.
Yeah, tough. That's a tough one to take in because what do? I mean, whatever happens down there, you're blamed for the history of that franchise.
Yeah, because you have to come in and make the candidate decision.
Right. Which is awful. No one wants to make that.
Right. Yeah.
Face
up the franchise decision. Yeah,
that's tough, and especially with. Maybe a guy looked pretty good that played quarterback pretty well towards the back end of the season ish. A young guy that didn't get much opportunity. You can maybe mold him, or you stick with the thing that doesn't get you very far all all the time. And
Or you come in and do a full out teardown and go for Trevor Lawrence.
Right. Well, but again, nobody in the NFL is getting more than 2 years if you don't win right away now. So you can't look at that. I think in the NFL right now, you can't be a part of the tear down rebuild unless you're coming in after they tore down. Unless you're in Miami,
Although,
right?
I think Brian Flores is. None of us expected him to be there through the whole thing, but getting 5 wins with that roster,
right.
I think.
And they got a ton of picks. Yeah.
But again, came in after they tore it down.
Right.
Not came in during.
I mean, they still got. I mean, while he was there, they still got 2 first-round picks from the Steelers and the Texans.
Yeah.
So.
But again, yeah, right. But I mean, I guess they had already tanked their way in.
They had already made that decision.
Right. I mean, you're not making that decision, tearing everything apart, getting draft picks for 2 years at a time. It's a little tougher. But yeah, I mean, none of these jobs look great on paper.
They all have their warts, right?
Yeah.
They all have an issue. There's some
pluses.
There's some pluses to some of the jobs, but.
Yeah, pluses and minuses, but at the end of the day, they're 1 of 32.
Yeah, right, exactly. 1 of 32 jobs on the planet.
Exactly, right. Going back to the playoffs, as we kind of look to wrap this up, what is one thing that you want to see for these playoffs? Is it just anybody but the Patriots? Is it you want to see one last ride for Brady or for Breeze? Do you want to see young gun quarterbacks, which is kind of what I want to see? I want to see the development of these, Watsons and the Allens and Mahomes. Are these guys going to make the leap into becoming a potential Super Bowl winning quarterback? What do you want to see, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, so getting back to my initial prediction of New Orleans over New England, I said earlier in this video, I hope that Patriots lose today. Also, as a Browns fan, if McDaniels really is in their plans, they can move quicker with that.
Yeah.
But I am rooting for the Saints to win it. The Saints have always been a team that I've liked. For whatever reason, they were the team I rooted for when the Browns were gone.
Yeah.
And I really like Drew Brees and Michael Thomas and all the OSU connections and just the bad luck they've had the last 2 years. I would love to see Brees win it and then go right off into the sunset. I think that would be cool.
Yeah.
I also, though, I mean, there's a lot of quarterbacks I like that are playing in this. I like Carson Wentz. I like Russell Wilson. I like Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. Yeah, it's a lot of good quarterbacks. Even Josh Allen. I like a lot of stuff about the Bills. So, and the Tannehill's a great story. Yeah. So there's just a lot of quarterbacks that are worth rooting for, I think, in this.
Yeah, I'd love to see some upsets. I mean, it's been chalky for a couple of years. I'd love to see some upsets. I think the AFC has those potentials to see some of those upsets. I mean, if like I said, dream just to watch the evolution of football and how everything changes. To me, if it's a San Francisco Ravens Super Bowl that is what we think it would be, a running, grind out type of, but still with big plays.
Like their last Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think that NFL, that would come out of that, because it's a copycat league. Yeah. I think the next 5-10 years of the football, of the NFL football would be so damn interesting to watch because of how revolutionary these two teams look like they are. Like and one is revolutionary by doing something that everybody was doing 20 years ago. And it's this whole copycat system. Yeah. We see fullbacks come into vogue because of this.
Fullbacks.
It could be really interesting.
All right.
So that's what I'm hoping for. But I mean, as a story, God, wouldn't it be wonderful if Tannehill could have been, Dobby free elfed into this into a Super Bowl attempt. Yeah. Or even an AFC championship game attempt. That would be so wonderful for a guy who tried so hard, got beat up so much, and got so much crap from the media in Miami for years, and to come and do this would be a great story. Agreed. That's the story I'm rooting for.
Okay. Cool. Any rants? We usually save the last segment for rants. Chris, did you have one? I heard that you might have one before we started taping. Or final thoughts. We'll even go.
Yeah, so not even a rant, but I'm going to make a very early prediction for 2020.
Okay, go for it.
So we've got Trevor Lawrence, presumably, if he doesn't get injured, will be the number 1 pick in the 2021 draft.
Correct.
And probably be the most sought after college prospect probably since Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
In terms of a college prospect, as far as how he projects to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how this is going to happen because they're a middle of the road team, but somehow the Indianapolis Colts are going to end up with the first pick in the 2021 draft.
They always end up doing this.
Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning, and let's not forget that they drafted John Elway as well. So Jacoby Brissett's going to get injured. They're going to have a couple other, maybe Quentin Nelson injured. Some of their Darius Leonard, maybe some of their best players get hurt. Somehow they will have just a one-off horrible season next year and end up with the number 1 pick and then be set for the next decade. Call it right. You heard it here first.
Yeah, you definitely heard it here first. That's for sure. It might be the only place you heard that too. Matt, how about you? Anything?
Yeah, I think I don't know if you guys. This is the 100th year of the NFL. I don't know if anybody watched any of the NFL films productions on the NFL Network
A little bit
for this, like the 100 greatest running backs, those things.
Mm-hmm.
The last one, I want to say, if you haven't watched those, you should. They're fantastic if you love the history of the game.
Especially some of those round tables.
Yeah.
Those are really interesting.
Yeah.
Right. And the last one was the 100 greatest players of all time, and you had Belichick sitting in there talking about literally every player that was on the top 100, every coach.
Yeah.
It's super fascinating to watch. One small rant though, I will put out there.
Mm-hmm.
So they did the last one they did was the NFL quarterbacks, top 10 quarterbacks of all time on the NFL team, right? And somehow they left Drew Brees out of this mix. I know he's still playing football, but how do you leave a guy that's statistically the best quarterback of all time and across numerous statistics out as not one of the best quarterbacks of all time that played the game? Brady got in there, obviously he's the GOAT, he's the best of all time, so it's not like they didn't say any active players couldn't be in, but I feel like Drew Brees was a real big snub, especially when you put guys like Dan Marino in there. Dan Marino, great quarterback, but if you take those two guys' resumes together, who's got more Super Bowls? That's Brees. Who's got more passing yards? That's Brees. Who's got more? What measuring stick does Marino outweigh a guy like Brees? And there isn't one as far as I can tell. And so it's I think he gets a lot of snubbing in the NFL for the record books because of the offenses he's been in, and that they're pass first and these kinds of things that jacked up his numbers. But God, the guy has been consistent.
He's the one that made it pass first.
Yeah, right. And as things change, and for being a guy who's barely 6 foot, maybe depending on what day you measure, right? And I think that was one of the only for the rest of it, I thought they did a wonderful job, but him being left out, maybe LaDainian Tomlinson being left out of the running backs, those are the two big snubs. And if you haven't watched those, you absolutely should. They're definitely worth it. But man, Brees needs to start getting some love in the NFL.
But I also figured just like a guy who arguably saved a franchise.
Right.
Like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
Saved a city, man.
Yeah. You talk about the decision between Miami and New Orleans completely changing the face of the last 15 years of the NFL. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I know no qualms against Marino, but that's the name I would take off to replace it. But God, Brees just seems to never get in these conversations for best quarterbacks of all time, and I just don't know what else the guy had to do to get
with a second Super Bowl.
The second Super Bowl, I guess. But again, how many did Marino win?
Right.
Six, right?
Or even be in a position to win.
Right.
Games, yeah.
The first one, and then really wasn't him doing it at that point. So. Anyway, that's my rant.
All right. I like it a lot. All right, guys. Well, thank you all for watching. Like we said, we're just going to talk about Wild Card Weekend. We're going to try to do a recap video early next week. And then we'll obviously be back. We'll try to keep you guys updated with more content. We know how much you love that content. We'll definitely be back here together for a Super Bowl preview in a couple weeks.
Yep.
So for Chris Adams and for Matt Harkleroad, share your Twitter handles.
I'm at the C. Adams.
I'm at Matt Hark.
And I'm at Mr. Andrew Hare. Like, subscribe, follow us, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
See you later.